Welcome to the Elevate podcast. This series focuses on elevating and inspiring women and girls into or to remain in the tech sector from the classroom to the boardroom. I'm Kelly Kwarteng, founder and CEO of Helzac and host of the show.
Thanks for joining us today on the Elevate podcast series. I'd like to introduce to you Jenny Farver. Jenny is the CEO of software consultancy Ep6 and has previously held CTO and VP of engineering roles at Chicago startups Lightstream, Popular Pays, and Civius Analytics. Before joining Ep6 full-time, she was on the Ep6 board of directors from 2018 to 2020. Jenny has been among Crain's Chicago's Tech 50 in 2019 and 2020. She's spoken at numerous local events as well as national events such as SaaStar and the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing. From 2014 to 2018, she taught as an adjunct professor at Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University and frequently advises Chicago startups. Before returning to a career in technology, she was a stay-at-home mum. Jenny has a PhD from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a bachelor's degree from the University of California at Berkeley, and holds 5 patents. So Jenny, it's great to have you on the show today, and what a journey that you've had so far. So thanks a lot for giving us your time today. If it's all right with you, let's start at the beginning. And it'd be great to understand what led you into the world of tech. And was there a particular moment or experience that ignited your passion for the industry?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, and thank you for having me. I got into coding through graduate school, and so that's, as typical scientific programming. So I was writing code so that I could run experiments and test hypotheses. It was not good quality code. When I left academia, I went into software product companies. And I think one thing that really got my attention and I found really exciting was that in tech, you can make products. One day there was nothing, nobody was using it. And, after some time, you can make something out of nothing that people use, and hopefully they find it useful, and maybe it makes them happy. It improves their productivity, might make them better at their jobs. And so just that notion of something from nothing was really exciting to me. And then, early on, that was the thing. And then you realize how hard it is to design products that really hit the market, that product market fit thing. Very hard. But that was the first.
Perfect. And on that early journey and that kind of the start of your career, or I suppose actually through any point in the time that you've been in tech now, have there been any standout role models or specific mentors who have played a significant role in shaping your tech journey, which has been, it's been vast. You've done lots of different things to the role that you're in today as CEO of Ep6?
Yeah, sure. I think I've gotten a lot of benefit out of kind of peer mentorship. So, I've had peers in a few situations who have really pushed me on. So I remember at my first software job, I was working in a customer support job, and I wanted to join the development team. That company had extraordinary standards for the software engineers on that. And there's just no way that with my CV or resume, I would have been hired onto one of those teams. But quite frankly, I was a great employee. Yeah. But I didn't have the software skills to be on that dev team. And so a colleague of mine, knew my ambition, knew what I wanted. And he said, this was in the early days of B2B software being kind of the SaaS model and being web software. So, before that, in my early 20s, B2B software would have been, shrink wrapped and installed on big servers, et cetera. And, he said to me, software is going to change in this way. And this being an older software company, many of the engineers don't know programming for the web very well. So here's the language and framework I would learn. And, so that support, that information from him, I had to go do the work. I had to go sit on my couch night after night and learn it. But that really paved the way for that part of my career. So that's an example of, just a peer that really paved the way for me. I also, at another job, I had somebody who was really advocating. I had no idea, but I found out later that they were really advocating for me to get a big promotion. And so that wasn't a manager or mentor, but like peers cheering me on, and then, telling me that they had the confidence that I could do those things. That was always really meaningful to me. There were also mentors, I think, in that when I was on that client success team, there was the woman who was, I guess she was my manager. What I noticed is I noticed when she left, and she wasn't mad and she didn't hate her job. She just left because she knew her value in the market, and she knew she could do more and have more impact elsewhere. And so I think that was just great role modeling for me. It was all positivity, but this is somebody I admired, and I was like, wow, Junon's ambitious. It's cool to be ambitious. I think the world of her. And so, she's leaving because she wants more, and that's cool. And I stayed at that company for years after that, but I think I just took a note that it's cool to be ambitious. It's cool to say you want more and to make something happen for yourself. I had a mentor, have a mentor who was being approached for a board of directors seat at a local company. He was a distinguished person in the industry. He gets lots of opportunities to do many interesting things. And so he was going to decline the opportunity, but he passed my name along for that. And so, I tell that story to motivate people to get outside mentorship. You have no idea what it could turn into. And for me, it turned into a board of directors seat, which was a huge deal for me. And I learned a lot from, and also to be mentors and like create those pathways for other people.
Wow. There's so many great examples there in many different ways throughout your career, how you've gone from peer mentorship, outdoor mentorship, and everything else. I think one of the things that I took from a lot of what you was talking about, there was a lot there about building you up. And I don't know, this is my kind of perception of it, is that confidence build, maybe where, maybe you didn't 100% believe in yourself, like the example of, a peer telling you to go and learn what the next big thing is going to be, to give you that confidence, to give you that step ahead. Mm. The role model example is just fantastic. And that external mentor that you spoke about there in that last example, I think is one that I think sometimes people miss, that opportunity and that ability to get a mentor, like you said, someone who seems very significant in the industry and what he does. And then through your mentor relationship, him passing you on to get that opportunity that you were trying to seek, I think is an excellent example of that kind of full circle relationship of where a mentor and a mentee can actually go. So yeah, that's brilliant in terms of sharing those examples. I think, your own personal journey has been remarkable, but I'm sure it hasn't been easy whilst being on that journey. And I'm sure that you've hit some challenges along the way as well. So what challenges, what are some of the most kind of standout challenges that you faced, and how did you manage to overcome them during your journey over the years that you've been in tech?
I was thinking about this, Kelly, and I think I think about it as in retrospect, I was often prepared but not trained for all of the big transitions in my career. So prepared but not trained, right? And so prepared means there was something in my background that gave me exposure, gave me readiness to make decisions, gave me kind of awareness of I guess, implications of decisions I could make. So there was preparedness. But I had never done a job like that before. I had never read a book on how to do that job. Oftentimes, I hadn't seen a manager do that job before I did it. So it's kind of make it up as you go along, or fake it till you make it. But that's not the same thing as being unprepared. And I think so. I think that's a thing for people to consider and reflect on their own background, is they're actually probably prepared for many things, even if they haven't been formally trained for them, even if they haven't seen somebody do that thing very well, there's a very good chance that there's something from their background or from actually their personality strengths that they can draw from that will make them really successful. So, I think that's some of the challenges, finding that strength to be prepared but not trained. And then, when you find yourself in that situation, investing in learning and resources. Somebody else may have done this thing. It might not be anybody you know, but you can read a book, you can listen to podcasts, you can accelerate your learning by spending time on those outside resources to get ready and to do those things. And then, have confidence that you can go and, and that you're going to make mistakes as you go, and make those mistakes with grace and persevere.
Yeah. And I know that we spoke before today, and one of the things you're quite a big advocate for is that kind of that self-learning piece and being able to go and learn. And I suppose you could take that back to the early part of your career when you were learning the new kind of, when SAS was becoming what SAS is today, learning the right programming languages to get you there. But I'm sure there's probably listeners that are listening in right now thinking, I'm really stuck in whatever that situation could be. And maybe they've tried to prepare for a challenge that might be coming up, or they're hitting a challenge that they just never thought would be something that would hit them along their path to kind of get to wherever they may be trying to get to. Can you offer any help for them to stay resilient in those hard times and persevere, to really ensure that they continue on their path and to achieve whatever that original goal was, and not to kind of see it as a challenge where it's just like, this is just too much and it's time to stop, or time to step off the path that I'd always kind of set myself up. So yeah, what would you give to any women listening in today that are facing that challenge?
I think there's a style of support in having people that support you, and that could be trusted advisors in the workplace. It could be your spouse or partner. It could be a mentor. There's all these people in our personal lives that cheer us on. And sometimes it can be actually quite a casual relationship. I remember putting a lot of energy in the tank once when, a husband's friend said, "Oh, you're going to be great at that." It was like a throwaway comment. And I was like, oh, that guy is really good at his job. He has a really fancy job that he's really good at. And he thinks I'm going to be good at this thing. Wow. So, you can really make an impact with a kind comment, especially if it's heartfelt. So I think I've gotten a lot of benefit from people in my life who, for me, strike the right balance between listening and empathizing with what's hard, and then asking me challenging questions. So they don't give me the playbook, or they don't give me a trite answer, but they ask me an open question. And then it's up to me to dig within myself and say, am I willing to answer that question? Am I willing to go after that? That's a style of mentorship that works for me. And again, it's not always a formal mentor. Back to the kind of fake it till you make it. I remember points in my career where I thought, well, I've never done this job, and maybe I've never seen it done particularly well. But I remember being promoted to a VP of engineering role and feeling maybe underprepared, and asking, well, let's say I was very well prepared to be the head of engineering on this team of size 50. What would that person who's really prepared be doing this week, right? And I'm like, oh, they'd be building a strategic plan for the next half year. And I had never done that before, right? And so I didn't have this, I couldn't go into my back pocket and be like, oh, this is the framework that I always use to build strategic plans, right? But I just was like, but that is the thing they would do. And I know they wouldn't get mired in this smaller issue, and they wouldn't get admired in this political thing. Or if they did, they wouldn't do it before they built that strategic plan, right? So I had this sense that if I wanted to step into this thing, I have to do that work, whether it's comfortable, whether I know exactly how to do it. So I think I built that up, and I turned it around to my boss, who was the CEO at the time. And I think it was a huge hit, not because my plan was perfect, but, and now I see this, increasingly I see these three things through the eyes of senior managers. you have no idea how great it feels as a CEO when one of your senior managers puts pen to paper on a strategic plan or something like it, right? Now I see that through the CEO's eyes. And, not only on the one hand, I was feeling perhaps underprepared, but maybe some of my peers were too, right? Mm-hmm. And they maybe couldn't get over that hump of how do I do that thing? Nobody, and, to be clear, nobody had ever asked me for the strategic plan. I just kind of thought, how do I look like I know what I'm doing here? I should write a strategic plan. And I did it. I could see from his face when he looked at it, he's like, thank you, somebody, right? Yeah. So I don't know, Kelly, whether that's a story about resilience, but I think, that these are some of the strategies that mentors who listen, but also challenge, and trying to have a habit of, healthy, intelligent, fake it till you make it. Those have been the things that I think have helped me through rapid change in my career.
Yeah. And I think there's probably many people that are listening in right now who are sitting there today in that individual contributor type role, looking to take that step into tech leadership and thinking, well, how different can it be? And then you get there and then it's like, well, what's next? Because until you've done something, you kind of know what's expected. A bit like you said, you take that step back and what should the VP of engineering be doing right now? And I think it's that ability to be able to do that. And I think that is some really great advice. It's kind of take yourself out of the scenario and kind of think about, well, what would you expect if you was the person looking up for that individual to be doing? What would the CEO looking down be looking at from that individual? And I think 100% fake it till you make it. You don't want to be completely out of your depth, but everyone's got to learn at some point, and you've got to have that ability to be able to make those mistakes and also make those wins and get those achievements. And I think that's some really great advice, and hopefully will help many people. And you can put it into so many different examples and scenarios within your career as well. Okay, perfect. Well, shifting the gears a little bit, because I know that we've spoke a lot, and I mentioned it in your bio, that you did take some time out when you had your children, and you've got some really great ideas and kind of comments that we've discussed around women returners in tech. So obviously women in returners, you've obviously got the people that are returning back from childcare and care from having children, but also there's other people from carer duties, looking after family members, or just general career breaks. So as a tech returner yourself, after having your children, can you share any insights on how employers can create a more supportive and encouraging environment for women who want to come back to a career after taking time off? You look at it from an employer's perspective first.
Yeah. I think, well, so first off, I think the good news is I think it's never been better, right? Which is not the same as saying that it's easy now, but it's never been better. And yeah, I took about 3.5 years off. So I was at home for the first 3.5 years of my first daughter's life, and the first a year and change of my second daughter's life. I think one thing that tech employers particularly can do is think about their hiring standards and what they're interviewing for. So, there's employers that hire for general computational thinking, like, do you have software fundamentals? Languages change, language features change, idioms of those different language change. But if you have that like solid software thinking, computational thinking, it never goes out of style. So employers have a choice to make about whether their interviewing process has a lot of gotcha on gotcha, you don't know about that language feature, or whether it's getting to some of those things that never go out of style. And so I think focusing on that is going to be more open to people from all kinds of backgrounds. Long run, I think it's also going to be a better workforce because those folks who have that computational thinking, they very quickly, within weeks, they will learn language features, right? And within months, they will learn new programming paradigms. And then you have an employee who is a learner, right? And that employee who is a learner is going to be able to keep changing So I think that's a choice that employers can make, and that's in places where in jobs where I've had influence on the hiring process, that perspective has benefited me, and I've passed it on because I've also seen like great teams that were hired from that perspective. That's a little bit, I think, on like technical interviewing. How employers can be more open, and then there's other facets to what they're looking for also. Across a few different workplaces, I've seen tremendous value of career changers. I see that career changers tend to accelerate really quickly through their career. And so, if somebody who spent 5 to 10 years in a sales job before becoming a software engineer, somebody who spent years as a restaurant manager before becoming a software engineer, that's not a cold start. That is a very warm start. I remember when my company, I saw that we had hired somebody who had been a restaurant manager at like one of the hip scene restaurants here in Chicago. And I just thought, oh, she's tough. She's going to be really tough. And she's going to do really well in whatever she does next. And I think I've been right about that. Staying at home for family-oriented leaves is a kind of career changer, right? I remember when I came back, I felt like, even just more years on the planet, I felt like I had 3.5 more years of social skills. I had 3.5 more years of patience, 3.5 more years of long-term thinking, and all those things benefited me. I also had clarity. Like I knew why I was here. All of us in our careers, it's very easy to bumble along, like one thing to the next. I got that degree, so I'll go get that job. I got that job, so I'll go get that promotion. And people who have taken a break or shifting gears have had this opportunity to step back and really, really think about what they want and why and what they're willing to give and put in. And so I think for returners, that is, that's a huge advantage to think about.
100%. And I think that clarity, when you've worked for many years, never think back in my own career, I've worked in sales now for nearly 20 years. And I took a year out with both of my kids. So I took 2 years out on separate occasions. And I think on each example, when I came back a slightly different version of myself, if that makes sense. Because I think my clarity and my purpose and my why really started to come together, and it started to kind of shape this new me, which gave a different perspective and a different outcome I believe in my previous jobs that I've had when I had my children in a career a couple of years back. So no, I'd completely agree with you there. And I think career changers and people that have had those career breaks can definitely come back much stronger with so much more to give based on the experience that they've had, because it is a life-changing experience, be it if it's children, if it's just a general career break to go and travel the world, if it's carer duties to look after a family member. Something has changed in that person's life, and it's definitely bringing something different back when they come into the world of work. For anyone that might be going through one of those transition periods right now, so like you said, you had 3.5 years out within the tech industry. So that is huge. If you think about how quick the world changes, particularly in tech, I recruit into tech. I don't actually work in tech. And I see the changes that have gone on over the many years that I've been supporting tech clients. So for someone who is looking at that career transition or considering re-entering the tech world, what advice would you give to them to help an individual be successful when they're looking to either come back or re-enter the work?
Going back to that, knowing why you're going back and what you want, I think that's the foundation of kind of making a plan that sets yourself up for success. So, I think we should all feel like, I think it's a tremendous privilege in our workforce. These tend to be well compensated jobs. So, it's worth it to go back to work. It's never easy to pay for childcare, but it's relatively easier. For all of my adult life, even in the current, what might be kind of sort of a recession in the US and UK, nobody calls it that, but it's, still tech workers are very much in demand, right? So even in the worst market, it's still typically a pretty good job market. And so that's just that's like wonderful for all of us who are in tech. And when I went back, I actually had this feeling of, wow, I haven't written a line of code in 3.5 years. I wasn't hobby coding while I was nursing babies. That wasn't happening. But when I thought about it, if I'm going to go back to work, I want to earn a paycheck I'm proud of. I want a serious job that's challenging to me. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And when I took it apart that way, a job as a software engineer was still the best choice given my readiness, my training. So, the plan I made was I wanted to go into a startup because I knew I wanted career growth. I'm an ambitious person. I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder about career growth lost. And so I wanted to go into a high growth startup environment. And then I also thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I don't know that 40 hours a week is going to get me what I want out of that experience. But of course, I still have all these constraints. I want to be there for my children. I want to spend time with them. I don't have infinite time. Nobody knows the value of an hour like a mother of young children, right? Yeah. So I made my plan to set, balance my goals, right? And I had conversations with myself about what kind of mom I was going to be, what was really important to me, and what I could let go. Was it is it going to be okay if my kids learn something from a childcare provider? Is it going to be okay if my husband is the person who does that thing for them? So honest conversations with yourself about in the case of working parents, like how you're going to balance those things. My children were really young at the time. Young children go to bed very early. So the way I made my plan for being able to put extra time into that job was 4 days a week. I came home, on time, which in startup land was on the early side. So, 4 days a week, I was running out of there at 5 p.m. And the 5th day of the week, I had permission from myself, from my partner to stay as long as I wanted, right? And I would stay till like 9 or 10 p.m. at night. And for me, that was my best plan for how I could fully commit to distinguishing myself in the startup context, but also, all the other 6 nights a week, be there at bedtime. And so people's plans will vary, context will vary, what they want out of it. Not everybody might want that killer startup job out of the gate. But those honest conversations with yourself, honest assessment of, we spent a lot of money on childcare, my husband and I, right? So that was we made an investment in my career, and it wasn't cheap, right? Yeah. People are going to make different choices. But honest, you can't have it all, but you'd be amazed at what you can have. But yeah, at the end of the day, everybody has the same number of hours in their week. So what's going to give, and what do you want?
I like that. And it's so true. You can't have it all, but you can have what you're going to plan for, is kind of what I would take from that. And that's I think hearing you talk about you returning back to work, and I've spoken to many women in tech, and everyone makes different choices. But I think for me, not being tech, but as a returning mom to quite a high level role that I was in, it's that mom guilt that comes. And for me, the mom guilt was my own internal pressure in my head that was putting this guilt on me. There was a bit of kind of like school playground moms and the mom guilt coming from there. But because we had a plan, and that plan was something I was comfortable with, my husband was comfortable with, it worked for our family, that mom guilt, soon I was able to overcome it and move forward. And I think how you just explained how you came back to work after 3.5 years, it's personal preference. What is it that you want to achieve? Is it that high-powered career? Is it to achieve whatever it is? Or is it just to go back and work a 40-hour week job? Whatever it is perfectly fine. But I think knowing what it is, I think would definitely help a lot of people who feel a bit lost when they go back to work, because it can be really hard. Because like you said, not being there to put the kids to bed, or someone else is teaching them, whatever it is, it's that you get that guilt feel. But then when you realise that actually this is what you've signed up for, and it's not really going to be that huge of a thing that you've missed, then it's making those choices. And I think that's some really sound advice for anyone that's about to go through this career transition period or re-entering the workforce. There's some great bits there that they could take away. And I don't know if you'd ever be open to anybody reaching out to you, but and ask for you as to how you did certain things. I think would also be, I'm sure, awesome that people, if they could reach out to you on. So thanks a lot for sharing that advice. And I think, some really sound.
And I think talking to parents who have older children than your own, like getting the long-term perspective is helpful. I think especially in those early years, there's so much. There's so many blogs and books and about babies, about young children. The good news is that by the time, people read far less books about their, 10-year-old children. At a certain point, you don't feel like you have to read all of them, which is a big relief. But to get the long-term perspective by talking to people who have older children and getting it, because all of these years, like the school years are very different from the middle school years, from the teenage years. There's going to be so many different things to be there for. And the balance of work and life and is going to change. I remember for years when my kids were young, being like, man, I have no hobbies. I was surprised that having young children meant that I would work and I would have young children and no other interests. And that changed, right? Now that I have school-aged children, they're awake for longer and I have hobbies and I have work. And things change. There's no need to panic about just those early years, and it gets easier.
100% agree with you. They're babies for such a short period of their life. And like you said, there is a million and one books telling you how bad you are for not being there for whatever it may be. And then we transition into the real world and they're starting to grow up. Teenage, that's where I'm just about to head into now, teenage years. And it does change. Then the fun starts.
I am going to read a book about teenagers, Kelly.
Oh, no, I'm not going to read it. I refuse.
I'm terrified of teenagers.
I think that's one of those ones, as you would say, kind of be prepared, but I'm definitely not trained for it. And I need to probably seek advice that have gone through it, that's for sure.
That's right.
Another topic that I know that is close to you and the team at 8 Flight in particular is that importance. And you mentioned it earlier about career changes. And I think if we look at the world of tech, we all know that there's going to be, and it's all publicly out there about the tech skills gap, and there's this huge tech skills gap in software development and everything else. But I know at 8 Flight, one of the things that we've spoke about is your career changes program. And I was quite interested, and it's something that I've gone away and done a bit of research on, looking at the whole returnships piece. And it would be great to hear more and to share, what it is that you're doing over at 8 Flight within this career changer returnship space, and how employers could benefit from embracing individuals that come from that non-traditional tech background. You mentioned the lady that worked in the hospitality industry and how that transition happened. It'd be great to just understand, what it is that you're doing, what impact it's having on your company, and how others might benefit from this as they're trying to grow their own businesses out.
Yeah, absolutely. So 8 Flight, we're a consultancy, so we work with our clients on software projects, and that might be embedding in their teams to help with the work and potentially influence and role model what great software delivery looks like. And it might look like 8 Flight fields a whole team and we build something working with the client's requests and constraints. So we might own the whole project. And of course, it's not just software engineers. We employ designers, product managers, et cetera. So the whole scope of software projects. The 8 Light Apprenticeship, this goes way, way back in the company's DNA, way before I joined 8 Light. Because we're a consultancy, it's very important to us that every 8 Light developer and designer meets our kind of standards of this is how we believe that software delivery is practiced, right? And so one of the ways that we feel like we can make that brand promise, especially early on, early in people's career, is that we can ensure a pretty a consistent apprenticeship experience that gets them ready to be software consultants. So people joining the 8th Light Apprenticeship, they already know how to code. They might have learned that in a university computer science program. So some apprentices have CS degrees. They might have another degree, but they might have done a bunch of code in school. They might have retrained through a coding boot camp. They might have retrained from something via self-study. So there's a lot of different ways where those apprentices have already done a bunch of investment in their readiness. They know how to code. And then what they're going to learn in the 6 months of the 8th Light Apprenticeship is not just how to code, but how to build software to 8th Light standards that make us really proud. So, I would call that kind of more of the software engineering, 6 months of software engineering topics. And so, our business model as a consultancy, our business doesn't make money unless our consultants are working, right? It's a very, very simple business model. So when we have apprentices, they're not working with clients yet. Sometimes they might do a little bit of non-billed work towards the end of the program, but for most of that 6 months, we're just they're our employees. We're paying their salary and we're making an investment. So we're making an investment in the quality of our workforce. It's just so happens we're also making an investment in their careers. But this is great business for us because it gives us, just high quality, employees. And, a 6 month investment, it's not free, but it is great ROI in terms of workforce readiness. So, and, I think, and it's something that we actually partner with our clients. Some clients ask us, hey, how can I build out an apprenticeship program? Because I see the ROI of it. And we're happy to do that. And, people can certainly reach out about that. But I do think that it's a very high ROI to get extremely ready, early career people onto software teams.
Perfect. And in terms of the returnships, typically, are they coming from any particular industry? Like you said, they've come from a coding background in some sense. So either they did a computer science degree, they've been to boot camp, but they've learned coding off their own back is kind of what I'm hearing from what you said. But, are they people that have been in industry maybe for like 5-10 years? I don't know, as something completely different, a teacher, for example?
It's really a range.
Yeah.
It's really a range. This might be their first job. It might be their first office job. Like I said, there's folks who are changing careers from the hospitality industry or from a sales job. Got people who are changing from a finance job. We have a few people who have transitioned from active duty military service. So there's a really wide range. And we've seen all of those different paths work through the apprenticeship program.
And has that helped in terms of building your company from a diverse perspective? A lot of employers that I speak to, they struggle, particularly building out diverse teams, be it through gender or ethnicity, that they're trying to have those diverse teams that really represent the customers that they're working with or the customers' clients that they're actually making these products for. Has that helped 8th Light to build a more diverse team?
Absolutely. Like the demographics of our early career ranks are very varied in all the places where we have offices. We're not perfect. And so if you look at our more senior roles, you'll see some of the demographic skew that has plagued the industry for as long as I've been at it. So, but this is, we're finding this to be a very effective way to be building, so that in a few years, the demographics of our senior workforce will be more where we want them to be. So it's one of the ways we're making progress. And yeah, it's very effective. I think if you widen entering the engineering career workforce away from people who made this decision when they were 14 years old to people who made this decision when they were 14, 16, 24, 34, you'll get a much more varied group, and they're excellent employees. So it's working out really well for us.
That's great to hear. And if anybody wanted to know more, if they're listening on to this episode and they were interested about the 8 Flight apprenticeship program, is there a way that they can check that out? Is it on your careers page, on your website? How do they do that?
Yep, they can go to our website. I hope I'm not wrong. So we tend to do our apprentices as a cohort model. So there's times of year at which we're hiring into that cohort and times at which year at which we're not. I believe you can join a notification list so that you can so that you can find out when we're running our next cohort.
Perfect. I'll share with the episode as well a link to be able to get that information on those cohort groups. I'm sure there might be somebody who would be interested further down the line, and they could reach out to the apprenticeship team and see how they might be a future 8 Flight employee and be part of that journey and that growth and that change that as a business you're investing in, which is great to see. I think other than that, Jenny, there is nothing else that I've got for you from a question perspective. I don't know if there's anything else, any insights or anything else that you think that you would like to kind of leave us with today before we finish up the show? I
actually thought of something. I think we're still in kind of like Barbie week. Is it out there in the UK? Has it been released in the UK yet? I've had this for a few years, more than 10 years now, probably about 15. Now this is computer engineer Barbie. So she's about, like I said, 15 years old. If you like, she's in the packaging. I've never taken her out, but if you look carefully, I think she runs Linux. She's got a smartphone. It looks like she has an Apple Watch on, but that can't be true because that wasn't invented yet.
Thank you very much for sharing.
That's all I've got.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing the insights on the show today. I hope that for all of our listeners that you found today's episode to be really inspiring, as I did. And don't forget, if you are listening in, to subscribe to the Elevate Women in Tech podcast series for more insightful conversations with trailblazers from the industry. And I'm sure if you'd ever like to reach out to Jenny, I know that she's on LinkedIn because that's where I found her. And all of Jenny's details and the information that we spoke about today will be shared in the podcast details. So until next time, thank you very much.